Okay, we are live. It is, let's see, am I on? Yeah, I'm on. It's 12:11. I was trying to get on here for 12, but that didn't happen. It is now 12/2/2023, and we're going to do this called the Friday Free for All. It's been kind of a crazy day, crazy week. So let me play my intro. Actually, let's do this first. Put this up. We're going to talk about true crime tonight. So we need to make sure that people who have a sensitivity to this stuff gets this warning here. All right, so let's play my intro, and I'll be back shortly, I think. Not sure what I'm going to go over tonight. Hey, Dandy, how are you? What am I doing? All right, so play the intro, and I'll be right back. All right, so here we are. What a week, huh? What a crazy, crazy, crazy week. Again, uh, I don't know if I've ever told anybody how much I hate public schools, but my daughter is 10, decided she wanted to go back to school this year. Finally, we got, her to get some momentum to go back to school. And as soon as she hit school, it's like every single week she's sick. Every single week. It's just nothing but a cesspool for, uh, stuff. So there's that. But enough about me. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go over the, let's see here. Um, I'm really not too planned for this today, but we're going to go to the first thing at hand, which is the Delphi debacle. So let's, did we do this yet? Did we do the Delphi murders? Judge faces deadline with Indiana Supreme Court. So let's go back to that and start there. So hold on. Let me share this. All right, so I think we're at the point now with the Delphi case where Judge Gall has given her response to this order here, and then the defense came out and gave their response. So we'll go back to this here first, and then rehash the whole week. Let's go.
In the Delphi double murders trial.
The judge overseeing the murder trial of Richard Allen faces an important deadline. Fox 59's Zach Myers is here with details on the latest developments. Zach?
Guys, you know this is just the latest chapter in the back and forth between the...
I hope you're okay. Hope you're feeling good.
Judge and the attorneys for Richard Allen, who stands accused of the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. Allen County Judge Fran Gull faces a deadline today to file motions defending her control of the Delphi case with the Indiana.
So what I've been trying to do with the Delphi thing is I've been really trying to go over some information with the whole premise of this thing, because I think the biggest thing on people's mind is how this guy here, if he's, guilty of this crime, what would cause somebody in their 40s to do this out of the blue? Now, I don't think we have any information on this guy whatsoever about his past, present, or whatever, but it just seems to me that it's kind of odd that somebody who doesn't have any type of history in this stuff would one day just wake up and decide that this was the thing to do that day. And I don't buy that. So that's what I've been trying to do, is get somebody on here to maybe go over that, maybe a psychologist or somebody. But it just seems really strange that somebody would just, I personally think this guy's probably done this before, or who at least tried to do this before. But that's the question I have for this whole premise.
The Supreme Court. Judge Gull has been challenged by Allen's original defense team, as well as attorneys who are arguing for greater public action.
Hello, CJK. How are you? Good to have everybody in here tonight. It's late. Sorry. I tried to get on here for 11:30 or 12, but that never happened, so I apologize.
Success. Allen's original attorneys, Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rosie, are asking to be reassigned to the case. They claim Judge Gull pressured them into...
I mean, I don't think I've ever heard a case like this before, where you have somebody... yeah, it's a great night for sports. I just watched the Washington-Oregon game, and that was pretty close again. So my big game is today.
Is stepping down after a leak of sensitive crime scene information to a social media follower. The attorneys want Gull dismissed from the case, claiming she's biased against their former client. That's something we don't see very often, according to experts.
It's very unusual for allegations of bias or other matters to go again before a higher court, simply because these matters are usually worked out between the judges and the counsel, and they rarely rise to this level.
Judge assigned 2 new defense attorneys from Fort Wayne to represent Allen, who reportedly wants his former defense team back on the job. Judge Gull has been off the bench.
I mean, like 40, I agree with most people, where 40, late 40s, early 40s, even anywhere after 40 is kind of late to be deciding on doing something like this. It's just really weird when we don't know anything about this guy prior to this incident, if he's the one that did it. But I just think it's strange that nobody's kind of delved into that aspect where it's but I'm pretty sure it happens more than people think it does. But it's just weird that somebody could just wake up one day and say, hey, this is what I want to do.
bench in Allen County for most of November dealing with an urgent medical issue. She was forced to hire a private attorney to represent her at the Supreme Court after Attorney General Todd Rokita's office said it would not take her case. So as of now, the soonest Richard Allen could go to trial would be mid-October of next year, which would be nearly 2 years after his arrest. We'll have a continuing coverage.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. People do snap, I think. It's just weird. I just think it's really weird. But like I said, we don't know a lot about this guy's past, as far as I know. But I would not be surprised if he's done this before, either, or whoever, if he's the guy, you know, he's done this before and just struck out, or I don't know. It's weird.
Coverage on the judge's motions as she files them today. Zach Myers, Fox 59 News.
Okay, so that's that. So let's see here. Let's go to, give me a second here. I just think it's really weird. But I guess the Evansdale case is kind of similar because it seems like that's a little bizarre too. Okay, so let's do this one here. This is the judge responds to the murder case removal request, and this was fairly comical. So apparently what happened this week is, like I said, they, what am I doing? She responded to the order, and then they responded to her, I think, yesterday. Hey, Miranda, how are you? And I think they're trying to get the Supreme Court back into this.
Us now to break all this down.
And Bob, you've been reading through her filing for about an hour now. What'd you learn?
Yeah, well, in this 23-page filing that was just filed with the Indiana Supreme Court.
Who'd you see? You just got home from a concert. Who'd you go see? That's pretty cool. I stopped going to concerts about 3 years ago, but it's only because I'm old.
Attorneys for the Delphi judge argue the Supreme Court should not get involved in the case. They say there is no need for the justices to intervene because Richard Allen has a right to appeal to other lower courts. So the Supreme Court should not weigh in. Attorneys for Judge Francis Gall say the special judge did not violate Allen's rights by removing his original defense team. They say the judge acted well within her discretion to remove Baldwin and Rosie over Allen's objections. The record supports that the trial court could reasonably conclude Baldwin and Rosie committed multiple violations of the rules of professional conduct, compromised Allen's defense, and that the totality of the circumstances.
Never heard of them. The War and Treaty, is that the band? Is that the concert? Cool. I'll have to check them out. Last concert I saw was Dave Matthews over here in New York. That was kind of, let's say it was an experience.
Demonstrated gross negligence.
I've seen Dave Matthews now, I think 3 times, but outdoor concerts on the grass are pretty comical.
And incompetence on the part of the defense team. The judge also argues she should not be disqualified or removed from the case because she has not shown any bias or prejudice toward Allen.
Just goes to show you how much I keep up on the latest trends, right? War and Treaty. I've never heard of them, but I'm sure they're good. 2 Grammy Awards, so there you go.
Or any of his attorneys. Now, of course, Allen and his original attorneys, they disagree. And that's why civil attorneys for Allen want the Supreme Court to step in. They want the high court to immediately reinstate the original defense team, to remove Gall.
If anybody wants to be a mod, let me know, because I can make as many people mods in here as possible. That way, if you guys have links you want to share, you can share them, as long as they're not like,
And to appoint a new special judge, and they want justices to set a new trial date within 70 days. In today's file,
there's nothing better than gospel and soul, right? Like those two right there, soul and gospel, I'm good with. That's awesome. Awesome. I'll make you a mod. I'll make anybody a mod they want to make if they want to. I don't really care if you post like like Frankie or any of your other favorite YouTubers.
Filing, the judge told the court they should not intervene with a new trial date. Allen's trial is currently set for next October. By the way, the Attorney General's office, they also filed its own brief today, also asking the court not to intervene. The AG says Allen should first appeal to a trial court rather than taking his request directly up to the state's highest court. So at this point, the Supreme Court will decide whether to get involved. It's not clear how long that will take for that decision to come, but the decision will be extremely significant in determining.
I just don't see how they're, it's so weird. At Frankie and Mekhi, they're both absolutely wonderful. They're awesome people. They just are. Oh, cool. Oh, I didn't see that the halftime. Yeah. This day and age in my life, I just hate a lot of people. Like I would go to concerts. I've been to thousands of concerts before when I was younger, but this day and age here, I guess I'm a loner these days. I don't know. It's weird. Plus I work nights, so.
Who will preside over the trial and who will be helping Richard Allen as his defense.
I just don't think it's a good strategy to try to, hey, Audrey, how are you? I got your name right this time. That's fantastic. I just don't see how they get thinking about removing a judge. I don't think that's never going to happen.
As all of these proceedings move forward.
My
Okay.
goodness.
I know it's a lot to
Every day.
unpack.
Yeah,
Every day something new.
it is.
Okay. Thank you so much. We
You're
appreciate it. Bob Siegel reporting tonight.
All right, so that's that. Now I'll go to see if I can find the, hold on a second. The latest on this here, because I know that the defense came out and had their own thing. It's just a whole bunch of lawyers doing a whole bunch of lawyer things, and I just don't want anything to do with it, to be honest with you. I guess it's interesting, but I just want some sort of closure for these people, and that's not going to happen until there's a trial. So, all right, so we'll go to something else first, and then I'll come back to this if I have to. Wait a minute, what's this? Oh no, we'll not do that. All right, hold on a second.
Thought it was dangerous.
Okay, so I think this is the arrest of the leaker. So we'll go over this. This was 4 days ago, and this is Court TV.
But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry, and they began to search. Then the next day, the worst possible news. The bodies of these two young girls were found, both victims of murder. As the investigation progressed over 5 years, there were sketches of the suspect that looked like two different people. And there was also video of the killer. Then, finally, an arrest of the accused murderer, Richard Allen. Allen says he didn't do it, and he also alleges it was a group of Odinites who were actually responsible, white nationalists practicing the ancient Nordic religion.
Like I said, if you want to be a mod, you don't really have to do anything. That's fine. But if you want to be a mod, I'll make a mod. I don't care. I'll make myself a mod too. Who cares? But if you want to let me know, absolutely.
Religion. Images of the murder scene have been sealed, but have been described in court papers and leaked online. And all this has led to more drama and more arrests in the case. Tonight, we return to the scene and bring you all the latest legal content.
The best concert I ever saw in my life, I think I was like 22, was, I might have been younger than that. Who knows? It was Deep Purple down at the Centrum, I think it was the Centrum in Worcester. That was the loudest concert I've ever been to in my life.
Controversy as we continue our investigation.
That's why I can't hear anything these days. When my wife talks to me, I can't hear anything. It's because of that concert.
of the Delphi murders.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And as we begin this hour talking about the Delphi murders, I want to remind you that it took 5 years. It took 5 years to solve this murder, to get to an arrest.
Actually had hair back then. I had really, really long hair.
Now, was it actually solved? That's for the jury to determine, obviously. But from the investigator's perspective, point of view in all of this, and the prosecution, it took them 5 years to solve this case. A long time. A long time. Especially when we
Look at these kids. You know, it just sucks, really, when you think about it. And they just get forgotten sometimes, you know, with all of this lawyering shit. It's just horrible.
found out who they arrested and some of the documents that existed, the fact that he had admitted being there almost immediately after the murders, and yet there was no follow-up until 5 years later.
I think the most drugs I've ever seen in my life at a concert was I was at the by accident, literally. I was at the Central Park concert with Simon and Garfunkel, and there were more drugs. I mean, if you wanted to get a drug, that was the concert to go to. Hey, buddy, how are you? Are you off tonight? Frosty's here. Frosty's awesome. Thanks for beating the Patriots last week. That was awesome.
Still boggles my mind, but it took 5 years to get to this arrest. And during the course of those 5 years, very little information was publicly known. And that's not necessarily super uncommon in the world because investigators want to hold back certain.
You want to come up, bro? Hold on a second. Yeah, if anybody wants to come up too, just let me know. I'll put the link in the chat. I was so baked at the Simon and Garfunkel concert that most of the concerts I've been to, I don't remember, but I remember that concert. I mean, I was so stoned. I was young. It was great.
Information as they continue their investigation, because sometimes, especially in high-profile cases, you get people from left and right and all over the place coming out of the woodwork, sometimes confessing to the crime. And you try to hold back information that only the killer would know that has not been publicly released, so you can verify that. You also don't want to compromise any leads that you're currently working on. So that part was normal. But it has continued in this case. And as you know, at Court TV, we cover.
Isn't that funny, Frosty? Every time I'm always driving and listening while you're on, and you're always driving and listening when I'm on. It's so strange. It's so funny.
Cases all around the country. And the state of Indiana is one where we haven't covered a ton of cases. We've never covered a trial because they've never permitted cameras inside the courtroom.
I do agree with this statement right here by Audrey. It's just really bizarre. That's why I'm very, very much opposed to gag orders these days, because, you know, the gag order I think was there to limit the amount of publicity things get with information, but these days with social media and shit and leaks and all of this stuff, I don't think it really makes much of a difference.
They just haven't. And then what I've found, though, in this entire process, from investigation to charges to the court proceedings, that Indiana is one of the most secretive jurisdictions in our nation. Now, in our system of justice, each state is allowed to do whatever they want to do as long as it's within the guidelines of the U.S.
New Hampshire's pretty bad too. Like, I live in New Hampshire, and I've been trying to get different locations too. I wanted to go check out a couple of locations to where bodies were found here, and I almost got arrested for doing that. So it's pretty secretive here too.
Constitution, so they have their own rules, practices, and the way they do what they do.
And I get it. You know, I understand, but, you know, when you have cases that are 20, 25 years old, I think they should start letting some more information back out to because obviously they're not solving it.
again, that brings me back to what has taken place in this case, where we've learned very little. And even after the charges, we learned a little bit more, but not a ton. Not a lot has been made public in this case. And you compare it to other jurisdictions. Like, we understand Florida has always been wide open because of their sunshine laws. They believe that is the best way to run the government, that everything is open as can be. Other jurisdictions like California, where they don't have a grand jury, a defendant is arrested and charged, there's a preliminary hearing. So before he gets
Wow, I got 8 people in here. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. I appreciate it.
to the trial, you see and hear almost all of the evidence. Because in a courtroom, a judge has to make a decision based upon the evidence if there's enough to go to trial. But in this case, we've learned very, very little until Richard Allen's defense team filed some motions. And this is an aggressive defense. This is not.
I don't think that's accurate. I mean, we learned a lot from that, but you know, a lot of this stuff here that was circulating early in this case, especially year 1, year 2, most of it actually turned out to be pretty accurate. It's just the fact that the exact stuff. I think we learned more from the Ron Logan thing than we did anything else. But it's just been a really weird case. Now, like, when you look at this picture, this guy looks wicked guilty in this picture here, but looks.
You don't have the evidence to prove that Richard Allen did this. It's you don't have the evidence, and you do have the evidence, and we've seen the evidence that you have to show that someone else is actually responsible. So the defense, out of the box, filed papers, lots of information that was not known before in this case. And this is a case, again, where the judge and everyone is very closely holding all this information back. And the reason to hold it back, in this case and in other cases I've seen, somebody, well, you don't want to taint the jury. You want to make sure the defendant gets a fair trial. I don't know what other considerations there are, but those are usually the 2 biggest ones. But in cases like cases in California where you have a preliminary hearing, or Florida where you have sunshine laws, or other states where information is known, you still get a fair trial. It still happens over and over again. People are found guilty. Some people are found not guilty. Again, depending upon the evidence and the jury's decision. But this aggressive defense has laid out 2 completely different scenarios now that we're trying to figure out, that the jury will have to decide, right? And the jury will have to decide what is the truth. What happened to Abby and Libby? Who is responsible? And as we get closer and closer to that date, which now has been moved from coming up just after the new year to next fall, it seems that there's more at stake here, because the attorneys who represented Richard Allen and put forth this alternative theory of the case based upon the prosecution's own evidence, not on the case anymore, and have been expelled from the case. The prosecutors wanted them off. The judge wanted them off, and right now they're off trying to get back on. And a lot of the issues related to that comes back to the release or leaking of information in a state where, again, of all the jurisdictions we've covered stories, the most secretive or most unwilling.
Okay, so I just put a few people in the moderator thing. So if anybody else wants to, I don't want to leave anybody out, but I just figured out how to do it, so I did. And let me know if you don't want to be, because I can just undo it.
To make anything public before the trial. And again, I understand why they're doing it. I'm just pointing out that it's vastly different than many of the jurisdictions where we cover cases. And it's because of those issues that his attorneys are gone, and this thing is in a whole different sphere. So we've got some information to go through, but let's go back to the scene, because that's where all of this really begins. And that's what this is about, the crime scene where these 2 young girls were found murdered. Again, based upon information released by the defense.
Those hats are so cute. I wonder what those hats are.
Through their motion papers, we've recreated based upon the allegations of the defense, what this crime scene may have looked like. Take a look at it. Folks on the screen, Abby and Libby. Libby flat on her back, left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of a tree, right hand covered.
I don't care what anybody says, but this looks bizarre to me. Like this is something you probably wouldn't normally see, like at a normal crime scene. This thing here was definitely staged or put like this for a reason. That's just my opinion. I don't believe in all the Odin thing, but this is definitely, if it looks like this here or anything like this, this is just weird.
Covered in blood, blood spots dripping all over her body, her right arm placed along the side of her body, 4 tree branches arranged in a pattern on her naked body. The pattern again.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not weird to stage crime scenes, but this here definitely is like that.
Getting to the defense theory, someone else is responsible. This is ritualistic. These are Odinists who did this. Abby, positioned on her back, fully clothed. No blood on the clothes or body except the neck where the fatal wound was inflicted. Elbows bent with right and left after placed on the chest. Left leg straight, right leg.
I mean, that's the reason why I think it's really strange that the initial search that night, I don't know if the initial search was coordinated at all or a free-for-all type thing, but it's just weird how if it wasn't coordinated that anybody could have walked back onto these bodies and done this. I don't know. I've asked that before, whether or not somebody went out back again that night and did stuff like this, because you know, there's a whole bunch of people searching. Anybody can go back to the crime scene and do whatever they want, technically.
Bent at the knee, bent right leg under the left leg, 3 branches forming an asterisk, small sticks, crudely mimicking horns or antlers placed over her hair. Now that's based on the papers. The actual images were leaked online. And from that, you had all this fallout, which resulted in an in-camera proceeding, which means a proceeding in the judge's chambers, out of the public.
I mean, I think that's pretty much consensus, right? Like, I mean, even if this whole thing is done randomly, right? Like, it seems to me that it's pretty well a staging type situation here, where whoever did this definitely wanted to do this. You know, it's just weird how somebody would just place sticks like this here. I don't know.
Courtroom, but there was a transcript of that. I want to read part of what took place October 19th after the leaking of those photos. The court, you left materials. This is to the defense attorneys who are in there. You left materials all over the conference room table, accessible to anyone. And this friend of yours, who apparently you have consulted with on.
Who the hell would do that, right? Who would go into somebody's office that they know and just take pictures of something they know nothing about really, without some sort of a vindictive type of thing or a money initiative or something? This whole thing doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, why somebody would do this. But I mean, there's some wackos out there, I guess, but it's just a right place at the right time. It just seems really weird.
On the case, it pains me to say this, but the totality of these circumstances demonstrate gross negligence and incompetence on the part of the defense team. I am unsatisfied with your representation of Mr. Allen. I am gravely concerned about his rights to have.
Like, it's so weird, right? Like, you just go in there, and that day, it just happens to be that day where Baldwin's in talking to somebody else, and you see all of these crime scene photos all over a table, and you take pictures of them. It's just really, really weird.
Competent, non-negligent representative.
In fact, I think there needs to be an investigation into that, because especially an independent one, because this is just weird.
Then Mr. Rosie, one of the attorneys, says, what you're giving us a chance to do is bow out gracefully, if you will, if that's the right term. Is there a scenario where the court would accept if we stayed on the case? So is that an option that the court would entertain? The court, no. Then, the first time I've ever had Court TV cameras in a courtroom, the judge, Judge Dolt, came out on the bench and said this.
We've had an unexpected turn of events, ladies and gentlemen.
I always said that this was weird how she said unexpected turn of events. Like this is, I'd love to get a body expert on here because this, to me, the clenching of the hands like this is just weird. Whatever.
Earlier this afternoon, the defense attorneys have withdrawn their representation of Mr. Allen. Mr. Baldwin made an oral motion to withdraw.
I mean, it could be that it might have turned into be like this whole money for profit thing, but they caught on to it really quick. Maybe I don't know, but it just seems weird how somebody would all of a sudden that day by chance just walk into the office and or whatever, or however it played out. It's just really bizarre.
Withdraw.
But this case has been bizarre since day one, of the very first second.
I granted that oral motion to withdraw, and Mr. Rosie will be submitting a written motion to withdraw, I'm assuming within the next couple of days.
And what the defense attorneys who now want back on the case is that it was a coerced withdrawal to a certain extent. And
Ellie Wilkes is awesome too. Very, very good people. Him and Ruckus. I make fun of Ruckus all the time, but you know, that's because we're from the same kind of town.
now Richard Allen has different defense. Will it be a different defense theory? There's a lot at stake here and a lot going on. We need to make some sense of it. So joining us tonight, the folks who've been on top of this from the beginning, from Indianapolis, Indiana, the hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee are with us. And in Chicago, Illinois, criminal defense attorney.
I don't think she's a liar, but I think that they tell the public one thing and tell everybody else something different. That's I try not to watch a lot of these with these two people in here or anybody, but I'm just starting to lose. I never really, whatever.
The host of Defense Diaries, he's smart. Bob Motta is with us as well. Kevin Greenlee is an attorney, by the way, also. Just want to point that out so everyone knows. Don't hold it against them, folks. You know, we got a lot of lawyers here. Okay, Anya and Kevin, let's start here as I'm getting through all of that. And you've got these attorneys that want to come back on, but this leak has caused a lot of repercussions.
I don't watch as many people as I used to. Like I used to watch them all. But first of all, nobody, like I said, I work nights, so it's hard for me to catch a live during the day, especially at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. But I love Gisela, you know, but she's great. But I don't watch as many as I used to. And it's not because I don't like them. It's just I don't have. I'm starting to not like these two people though.
And you all have investigated this leak. You've taken a look at it. It's resulted in an arrest. What can you tell us about how this leak came about and who exactly is allegedly responsible for it?
Certainly. So our role in this sort of effectively started October 5th. We received some crime scene images along with other leak discovery. Pretty quickly, our source wanted to sort of turn around and cooperate with law enforcement. We alerted law enforcement and the defense. We sort of discussed.
I started watching Gisela back when she had the guy from the Scotland Yard on. Remember him? He was good too.
All this, and so what ended up happening was a man named Mitch Westerman came forward to Andy Baldwin and ended up telling him, I did this. Now, who's with Mitch Westerman? He is actually a close friend of Andy Baldwin. He used to work with him at the law firm there. And apparently Baldwin was using him as some sort of consultant.
So this guy, Mitchell Westerman, was arrested for the photo leak. I don't know, Asterisk 1. So, and then the other guy, I think, was the guy that unalived himself.
On the case, not officially, but basically viewed him as a really talented strategist and was kind of running things by him on Delphi. He was passing that along to others, and this ultimately.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he was really good. he was on her show a lot in the beginning, especially on the Delphi stuff, because it was like 2 years ago, I think now. But I don't know what he's doing now. I don't know. I know he doesn't like to get into the trial stuff. Either do I, to be honest with you, but
ended with the leaking of crime scene photographs and other discovery and also trial strategy, things like that. And so it's been now what has happened is Mitch Westerman, you can see his mugshot here, has been arrested and charged with criminal conversion. So they can't charge him.
this guy's going to literally get a slap on the wrist. I don't know what they can do with him. It's just,
with theft because he didn't really take anything, but he's basically accused of improperly using these images, and it's a whole mess.
And I think it's important to stress that this leak should not be seen in isolation. There's a context here. Judge Gold indicated that she saw this basically as the straw that broke the camel's back. And she cites other things that these defense attorneys have done since the beginning of the case, which caused her to lose confidence in them. She says they've lied in court filings. She said they've kept from her information about an earlier leak. They weren't forthcoming about it. So it's really important not to see this leak in isolation as part of a bigger picture.
Follow up to that on the leak and and what has taken place here. At any point during your coverage of this story, have there been leaks from investigators or?
True Crime Web is a miracle in this whole. Like Steve and Mrs. Steve, they're just great freaking people. It's one thing when you have certain retired law enforcement that's just out there for, because there's a lot of those around. But True Crime Web is just, he calls it like he sees it. It's good. It's good medicine. It really is. He's awesome.
Prosecutors or anyone on the other side of all this at any step of the investigation?
Yes, it's interesting. A lot of people.
One of these days, we're going to get together, sit down at a Waffle House and talk about good old times.
Sort of conflated at times, like our coverage with of Kegan Kline, which of course is a different criminal case with stuff that's going on here. And I think we can pretty confidently say nothing like this because
nobody on the prosecution side has ever leaked to us discovery materials that was protected by an order from a judge.
True Crime Web deserves all of the accolades on YouTube, all of the streams he does, all of the investigation. I mean, he deserves all of it.
Yeah, that's what distinguishes this, I think, in the minds of, the people going through this basically in the center of it. So it's kind of interesting, but it does sort of stand apart. Although I will say Rosie, for his part, has alleged that, Barbara McDonald has sources. So that means that she's benefiting from a current leak. I think the facts on that are a bit iffy, though.
Bob Motta, let me ask you.
These guys knew about the confessions before anybody else did. So they're not fooling me. But I remember them when their podcasts, when they were giggling of, we knew before anybody else did. We were told not to tell anybody. So they're full of shit as far as I'm concerned, but it's just my opinion.
And I've seen a letter written by Richard Allen where he says he wants the attorneys back. The attorneys want to get back in the case. They've gone to the Supreme Court of Indiana to try to get back in the case. The leaking of crime scene photos by someone associated with the defense, from your perspective, do you see anything that helps or hurts the defendant's rights in this case? Because I think that's really the basis of the judge getting rid of the attorneys, is that they're not competent and effective counsel. I think that's basically the legal standard for the most part. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Right, Vinny?
No, yeah.
I mean, it's like everybody in this case. It doesn't matter who you are. I've seen the best YouTubers. I've seen the worst. I've seen them all. The one constant that remains in this case here is the Kool-Aid, right? Like everybody drinks the freaking Kool-Aid. Judge Gall has got the entire bottle of Kool-Aid now. I mean, once you get involved in this, it's like you want more and more and more, and then you just absolutely go crazy because there is no answer. There never seems to be an answer in this case, and I had a little bit of respect for them before, but now it's feigning. I don't want to say what I think I know, but there go the cats. Okay.
Yeah, that's
so
problematic.
Yeah, as far as the leak itself, the reality, we can't pretend it's something that it wasn't.
I like this guy too, but he talks too much. I mean, he just never shuts up. I don't know if that's like an Italian thing, probably. Him and his wife though are really good. I watched them. I watched the prosecutor's podcast too because I like to get both sides. I don't. But when it comes to lawyers, the lawyers are going to be lawyers, right? The defense is going to defend, and the prosecution is going to prosecute. That's the way it goes. You're never really going to get a straight answer.
Which was a leak that made it out to the public en masse. It just didn't. It didn't make it out to the world. They didn't see it. Yes, it's incredibly disturbing that anyone would come in and take photographs of graphic crime scene photos of two beautiful young girls for any reason, let alone to start distributing for reasons unknown. Frankly, that's one thing that still is a mystery, why this guy would have done that. It certainly doesn't benefit the defense. I've heard people talk about, oh, well, gee, it was Baldwin wanting to support his Odinism theory by getting these out. Well, that's,
like I said, I have my own opinion on this case. I think this guy's, I don't know. I have to wait. What I want to see is the initial, when he came forward in 2017, I want to see exactly what he said, exactly what was written down. But
anybody who's practiced criminal law and tried cases knows that that's absurd. No criminal defense attorney would ever want crime scene photos out to the public, because what it does is it incites the public against their.
I agree with that. Lawyers do what lawyers do, man. That's you're better off with them. But when you get into stuff like this, it's just back and forth. Doesn't they're not going to get rid of a judge. It's not going to happen. If that happens, it's like, wow.
Their client. So the thought of, or the mention of Baldwin doing it intentionally was obscene to me. And I've heard it mentioned multiple times. And as far as whether or not his rights to a fair trial have been potentially injured by this leak, I'm just not seeing it, because the photographs never made it out. And let's not forget, the reality.
I think this guy's a really good actor. I do. I just think he's a really good actor, and he's pulling the strings on all of this shit. That's just my opinion.
Is it these aren't state secrets. These aren't things that you have to have some kind of security level in order to see them. They're crime scene photos for a case that's going.
And honestly, that's all I want in the case. I probably sound like a broken record from the internet, but I just want there to be justice for these two kids. That's all I care. I don't care who's guilty. I don't care who's not guilty. I just want somebody to pay the ultimate price for taking two kids' lives like this. And if he's the one that did it, absolutely.
Going to be a public trial, and Vinny, you were a prosecutor. I mean, unfortunately, in trials, in order to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt, especially in a homicide case, you are going to have to prove that a homicide took place, which means that the pictures are going to have to be made public.
Didn't Bundy defend himself? I thought, I must be wrong. One of them defended themselves for a while. I thought for sure it was Bundy, but I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't defend them.
When I say public, I'm going to be talking about they're going to have to be produced at trial, and the people within the courtroom are going to see them. Now, does that mean that you guys or us on Court TV are going to be able to view them? Probably not.
I mean, it's not like a football game where you can, cheer for the winning team. This is a murder investigation here. This is, whoever did this needs to be seriously punished for their shit. I don't care who did it, as long as somebody's found guilty of it. And who is guilty of it. That's all I care about. These poor families, it's just, but again, if I was the families, I'd be a little pissed too, at everything that's going around on this case. You know, like, just shut the hell up and get to a trial and let's figure out what's going on.
Depends on what the judge says, if they're going to allow cameras in the courtroom, which at this point, I'm not optimistic. But, you know, the reality is that they become public. The trials are public. People are confusing what these pictures are as if they're some kind of secret government documents wherein they're not going to be made public at trial. So eventually they're coming out anyway. That's the facts, you know, and to get to like whatever Judge Gull's impetus, and Kevin brought up the fact that it was the camel's back that had been broken because there were multiple straws. Well, that's why you have an evidentiary hearing, because whatever she found, we haven't heard the full story behind it.
I mean, at this rate, we're never going to have an answer. You know what I mean? At this rate, this case could go on literally forever. I mean, you're talking about a trial, if it happens next year, right, in October, which, you know, in this case here, nothing happens. So, I mean, and then if there's an appeal, good Lord.
I've heard half stories. I haven't heard what the defense's side of it is, because she chose to move forward with this without having an evidentiary hearing. And the problem that I have with it is when I hear that the state finally got some help in terms of Jim Luttrell being brought on to help Nick McClelland try the case with them, you know, and this is late. This is in October. So he was going along kind of on his own with a rather massive case. And you have to think about this looming trial date of January 8th. And when I have defense counsel saying on the record and in pleadings that they were advised the judge that they were going to put a speedy demand in and that they were going to go to.
Bundy was from right here in Vermont. And you can't tell me that he didn't do anything around here. That's how I feel about Bundy.
Trial on January 8th. When you think about the amount of litigation that still had to take place, and it had to take place, Vinny, you know, when there is a speedy trial deadline, that is in stone. If they don't go to trial on January 8th, meaning the state and the judge be ready, meaning that she's got to make time in her busy docket for Allen County, which is not Carroll County, she's got to make time for all the pending motions, including the pending Frank's motion, which she had, by her own admission, had not gotten through.
I know it's kind of late, but I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Now the fun begins. Christmas, right? Good Lord.
Through any of the evidence and hadn't finished the memo itself. I think when you kind of look at the threat.
All I can say is this courthouse here is just absolutely beautiful. I mean, look at her chair, right? The walls, the woodwork. I mean, this is a courtroom.
Of them going to trial is an impetus for why the judge may have wanted these two guys off. I think it has to be looked at. I really do, because that trial date in terms of 2 months, and you know, Vinny, from when you practiced, it's a blink of an eye when you're preparing for trial. 2 months is nothing.
Oh,
so
especially a case of this nature. Anya, Kevin, I just want to follow up on Mitch Westerman.
See, Vinny's smart because he cuts in, because this guy could literally talk forever. And so Vinny had to just say, okay, let's take it from here. I'll take over here.
Is he a lawyer, number one? And number two, was there ever any explanation as to why he did it?
Mitch Westerman is not an attorney. He did.
Yeah, Bundy was just an a-hole, as far as I'm concerned. Pardon the French. He was just a dick.
Did take the bar, but did not pass. So he was in the role at the law firm with Andy Baldwin as an operations manager, but he was still very much a member of the team. We actually interviewed him.
I think he unalived those people in Florida because he knew he could do it, and he was basically lashing out at law enforcement and all that. He was just an idiot, an ass.
Before all this happened back in March of 2023. And he talked a lot about how he would provide strategic insights and kind of bat around ideas. That was sort of the vibe at this firm. So why would Westerman do this? It's very unclear to us. When we interviewed him, he spoke with great affection about.
Have a good night, Dandy. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for being a mod.
about Andy Baldwin, his former boss, his mentor in many ways. And so it struck us as very, very odd that somebody who, cares about a person they worked with, would take action that ultimately would hurt that person. And so, yeah.
I just don't understand what's in it for this guy, right? Why would he do this? Is it just like an inquisitive mind, like taking pictures and sending them out to specific YouTubers? It's just so bizarre.
Motives are not clear. Ultimately, it would be hard to know that because Westerman himself in his affidavits where he talks about this is very vague. He admits to the actions he's doing, but he's not giving us the insight into why he's doing it.
Well, you mentioned it, and you guys are always on top of it on the Murder Sheet podcast. Let's take a listen to that interview you did with Mitch Westerman. Again, this is before all of this controversy, before the leak. Let's listen.
He just makes everybody feel real comfortable. I mean, I think he's just a real, like I said, when you talk to him or if you have, he's just casual. He's just kind of a dude,
So this is kind of bizarre, right? They had him on their podcast, right? And I think they were one of the people that this was sent to. It's weird.
He's just kind of a dude, and the whole crew's kind of like that. Like I said, when it was time to be really serious and get down to work, like it got really serious and the days were long and hours were long and things got tense. But the rest of the time, it's pretty casual and fun and real comfortable.
There he is on the Murder Sheet contest. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee staying with us. Bob Mott is staying with us. When we come back, we are going to take a look at the Odinistic tentacles that are all over the allegations of the prior defense team. We'll do.
I just kind of fast forwarded it through the commercial crap. I mean, these pants right here, I always said, this guy, I remember back, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I wanted to see if anybody could get an actual kind of measurement on this guy's shoe size. Because I always thought this guy was under 5'9" because of this issue here with the pant leg. And I mean, it doesn't really look to me like he's got really average size feet size here. It's this guy's a smaller dude.
That was the video we saw for years. And according to prosecutors, that's the killer. And according to prosecutors, that's Richard Allen, the Delphi murderer.
I agree, Miranda. I mean, but what the hell do I know?
Relatively simple case of a man who commits an opportunistic type of murder, carrying a gun, gets the girls to go to a certain place, and then murders them. Defense, completely different theory involving a ritualistic killing.
The whole marathon gas station thing with them. Like they had everybody going with this whole marathon gas station thing and a red Jeep, and they talked to Keegan Kline in prison and jail. And they got this whole red Jeep where he's just. Look, when anytime you talk to a criminal, you're probably not going to get good information. It's just they're just like everybody else, really. They're trying to get the scoop and
by a group of men somehow associated through.
And I don't know why she has to sit so close to the camera. Like he's always so far back, and she's like right on top of the camera. Just irking, really.
The ancient Nordic religion of Odinism. That's the allegation. So the allegation.
She has no clue. She just has she's not really very good at this stuff. He might, because he's a lawyer. I don't know what kind of a lawyer he is, but she's clueless.
By the defense in their papers are very thick and very specific. So I'm going to run through some of them here.
Yeah, Keegan Kline is right where he needs to be. Keegan Kline is a royal piece of shit, period.
To try to give you a flavor for what they are alleging, okay? So we begin with person A. We're not naming any of the people. We're just giving them letters. So person A lives here in Logansport, Indiana, which is 21 miles away from Delphi. Delphi, Indiana is where person B lives, okay? You got person A, person B. Person A, their son was dating one of the victims, Abby Williams. Person A would visit person B in Delphi to practice Asatru/Odinist rituals.
After going through, like, I read the entire, 3 times, I think now I've read the entire, because I have it, the 136-page thing. And my opinion is you can tell that this was a really, really unorganized investigation. You had, I think, 2 to 3 different departments doing their own freaking thing, and I have a feeling that that's why this took so long, because there was a point in the case where the Georgia Federal Bureau was involved too. But this, to me, reading that 136 page is telling me that this was not as coordinated as people thought it was.
Is somehow, again, these are all allegations by the defense, associated with the Vinlander gang, which apparently white supremacists, I believe.
And Carroll County is just, I mean, good Lord. Tobe is just, I don't know, whatever. I mean, if you have a problem in Carroll County, you're probably better off just moving.
Leave. Ex-wife of says person A and person B stopped being friends after.
I mean, the Florida fire thing will never get solved. It's just not going to happen, no matter how much. And it's sad. It's just really, really sad. But that case, in my opinion, will never get solved because they don't want to solve it.
After a fight during a ritual in the woods. Images
I don't think they have the talent to solve it, for one.
on Facebook page resembled the crime scene. Again, according to the defense, multiple tips about person A were called in after these murders. Let's get back to person B now. Again, from Delphi, Indiana. Person B's home, only 3.1 miles from the closest entry point to the murder scene. Holds the Asatru Odinist religious ceremonies at his home. A 2016 video purportedly shows person B using his finger to mark or paint a tree, which is an allegation of what was found at the scene, some blood or something on a tree. Let's take a look now at 3 more.
I thought they got that back and it was Libby's, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
People, Rushville, Indiana. Person C, D, and E all live there, but that's 271 miles from Delphi, okay? It's not around the corner. Person C is a Vinlander and an Odinite, is friends with person A, person B, and person D. Recruits members for the Vinlander gang.
I think all of these people should probably be arrested anyways, is my opinion.
Drove up to Delphi around Valentine's Day in 2017 to see his, quote, Vinlander buddies. When he drove back from Delphi, he had blood along the side of his car.
Yeah, I have absolutely no respect for Tobe Lesenby at all. After what he did to Libby's mom, just I have no respect. And what he said at the crime scene, like, he just has no caring, no feeling, nothing. That's what I take anyways.
That's person C. Person D, also Rushville, Indiana. Linked to person A through Facebook and recreates the Facebook posts that are made by person A. Person A posts something, then all of a sudden person D.
Have a good night, Miranda. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate everybody for coming in. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Does the same thing. Told his sisters he was involved in the murders and said he was part of a gang. Said to his sister that he made horns out of sticks and placed them on Abby's head. Asked the police if he could explain why his spit was on the girls, would he still be in trouble? The investigator, though, describes him as having the mental capacity of a 7 or 8-year-old. He lied to police when he told them he did not know person C. He told police he was home in Rushville on the day of the murders. Now let's move to person E. Told police he was with person D in Muncie, Indiana. You know, person D, who said he was in Rushville, was in Muncie, Indiana, visiting a friend in the hospital on the day of the murders. Told police person D was communicating inappropriately with underage girls on the internet. According to person C, person E was interested in joining the Vinlander gang. And don't forget about the one other big revelation about the con.
Have a good night, CJK. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. I know it's late. Pick up birthday cakes. Whose birthday is it? Thank you, CJK. I appreciate that. I try not to have an opinion too much, but I do. I don't know. Yeah, this is my new famous word, ass hat. That's like rampant in this house. It's like ass hat of the week. This guy's one of them.
Context of Odinism in this case is that the prison guards who were
happy birthday to your oldest daughter. That's cool. I agree.
Watching Richard Allen are alleged to be Odinites. And
I hope the cake's good.
Then they admitted not necessarily being Odinites, but I think they said Nordic heathenry, something along those lines. So we've got to get to the bottom of all these Odinist Nordic tentacles in the case. Still with me, Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet podcast, Bob Motta. Great.
I wish I had a birthday song to play, but I don't. I should probably get one of those. Something that's not completely horrible. But happy birthday to your oldest daughter.
Great attorney. Joining us from Little Rock, Arkansas tonight. She's also been, of course, on the Murder Sheet podcast. President and CEO of the Troth, the largest international organization for heathenry. That's Lauren Crow. Great to see you tonight.
Yeah, she's really good. She is really good. I think I tried to contact her to come on here too. There's another one. No, there's another guy. I forget his name now.
And in Salt Lake City, private investigator, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, and author of Deceived. Take a look at it, folks. Deceived, great book. It's that time of year, giving gifts. Why not give this to the true crime lover in your family? Mike King is back with us. All right. Lauren Crow, let me start with you. Heathenry was... One of the guards said, listen, I'm not an Odinist. I practice heathenry. Is there a difference? Are these things connected? What, from your perspective, what is an Odinist? And who are these people that we're talking about that are doing what they're alleged to be doing by the defense?
I think the easiest way to explain it is Odinism is a prison gang. It is a gang that disguises itself as a religion. Odinism, specifically in prisons, started by a woman named Elsa Christensen in the early 1980s in Florida. And their sole purpose for gathering as a religion was so that they could have cover to then talk about white supremacist political activity and other activity with impunity. So Odinism is, think of it as the, Odinism, if you think about it, it's the Westboro Baptist Church of Germanic and Norse paganism, which all of the things we're talking about right now fall under kind of this umbrella of Germanic and Norse paganism. Germanic in the sense of Germanic languages. So you think of Anglo-Saxon, Frankish, Alamaic, all of these tribes that existed pre-Christianity in Northern Europe. So then you have Asatru. Asatru and Odinism are not the same thing. Asatru in the United States, I'm speaking specifically in the United States because it is different in Europe, is a race.
Most of it's all speculation because, I mean, I know a little bit about it because I do a lot of history stuff, especially with the Roman side and the pre-Christianity stuff. The Brits, the Celts, all of that stuff. But a lot of it is speculative because nobody wrote anything down, so we know very little about it. One thing about the Vikings is anything that they had done before was pretty much rewritten later. And it always seems like after a certain period of time, it was kind of derogatory. The same thing happened to some of the Celtic stuff.
Racist, but not white supremacist gang racist form of paganism. So they believe that to be a Norse pagan, that should be allowed to people with Norse descent, so white people essentially. You have to be white enough. And then you have heathenry. So heathenry is a blanket term. I practice what's called inclusive heathenry, and we believe anyone can be.
Like when, not to get too much into it, but when some of the Eastern Viking raiders, especially in Russia and stuff like that, they actually sided with some of the early caliphates because they were all basically trying to go and get plunder from the Byzantine Empire. So they were pretty smart, but like I said, they all basically melded into the whole Christianity thing. So a lot of the stuff was rewritten after.
Heathen. As we say, we're not so arrogant to think we know who the gods are going to call, right? We're not going to try to tell our gods what to do. And so the problem that I'm seeing in here is, first of all, Odinite is not a thing.
Right.
I don't know where they come up with.
It's not even, that's what I mean. It's not, Odinite is really weird. That whole classic thing here, Odinite or Odinist.
It's a mineral. It's found in like sedimentary areas. I have a geology background, so the first time I read that, I was very confused as to why they were talking about rocks. But also, I think
I agree. It's the same thing with the whole Aryan thing, if you want to go that far. But this is what happens. People pick these things up and they really know nothing about it.
The important thing is to remember is that Odinism is present anywhere that there's racism, because it's not a religion. It's a gang that is in prisons using the guise of religion to be able to gather and do gang activity.
Gotcha. I mean, and they sort of say that, but not exactly the way you're saying. So Mike King, from your background, knowing what we know, limited obviously, but about the crime scene, about what happened here, the allegations of the defense, does this strike you as a ritualistic type of murder? What happened to Abby and Libby? And do you see it being in sync with these allegations of these rocks/Odinites who were practicing, I guess, outside of prison and meeting and doing things allegedly together?
Well, I really like that quick lesson that we just had. And I appreciate that because it helps.
She's really intelligent. I enjoy listening to her. Some of the other people too. I mean, this is what they do. It's all they do, really.
Let me kind of put into perspective a couple of my thoughts, Vinny. And first and foremost, we have to recognize that groups like white supremacist groups for decades have used symbology to somehow get across messaging. We also know that criminals can go in and create a crime scene. They go from a very organized state to this very disorganized state where we see all kinds of bizarre things happening, but then go through a process of staging where they spend some time maybe sharing things that they saw. We saw it with Richard Ramirez. Remember that pentagram that he kept writing on the wall? He told me personally he was never a Satanist at first, but it became good business. So we got to.
I think the reason is because when you go to prison, right, you have very little things to do, and all day to do it. So you get into these mindsets, and it kind of fancies I mean, sometimes it's a survival thing too, but you got nothing better to do in there, so why not concoct some sort of a gang, But very few people actually know anything about it.
To keep in mind, is this an artifact of what was really going on? If this was truly a group of people who were going through ritual crime, I think we'd see evidence in other locations to support it, not just.
If you go to a prison at any time and ask most people in the prison, they're probably going to tell you one thing: two things. One, they're innocent, and two, they found God. When you find God, you get good time.
Relationships or a video that came out that somebody, including Richard Allen, could have seen and recreated on the fly in the middle of a crime scene. We have to look at this thing in totality and not get sucked into these individual pieces of really amazing pieces of evidence and information, because we can go down rabbit holes that completely cause us to forget all the facts and just twist everything we're seeing to fit whatever goofy.
See, this is the thing. Law enforcement has to figure all of this shit out, right? They have, especially in this case, because they had over 50,000, 60,000 tips, right? And there's been so much attention to this case that they couldn't just let these things slip. So law enforcement has a lot to do. It's not easy. I mean, you have all of these crazy tips coming in, all of these, but you got to investigate all of them. And that's what I think. Mostly, this is what this is about. Is there's some relevance to this, but I don't know. I don't buy it. But who knows? I don't know.
Theory we're coming up with, and I guess this is what really is putting pressure on the prosecution.
Oh, absolutely.
To make sure they can come
Absolutely.
in.
Reasonable doubt comes in many different forms. You throw stuff in there.
I went to jail/prison when I was like 20, 22 I had a really big alcohol problem. So I went for basically just stupidity. But what happens in jail stays in jail. It doesn't. And I'll tell you one thing right now, I'd rather be in prison than jail. Prison is much safer.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Lauren, and if you can answer quickly, that'd be appreciated. We're almost out of time. How prevalent is heathenry / this Norse paganism? Because, I mean, all these names are popping up, including, I think it was 2
That's awesome, Audrey. Almost did it again.
or 3 of the prison guards that were there. So should I be shocked that?
I think it's because I love the name Aubrey. One of my daughters was supposed to be named Aubrey, but that never happened because I basically have no say in the house.
There's that many in a particular area?
No, I am president of the largest organization. We have 2,500 members around the world. The church in Iceland, for instance, has over 1,000 members. I think more than that now. It's actually paganism as a whole is one of the fastest growing religions in the world. And it especially draws people who are very into military, first responders. Those people tend to be very drawn into it because of the warrior aspects, the in Odin we trust thing, very common among.
Hello, Miracle Hearts. How are you? You're not late. You're technically early. Yeah, I agree with this statement. I did some really. I'm probably the dumbest person ever that ever lived, especially when I was in my 20s.
Those patches are very common among military, first responders, police, like who are heathen. It is a way for them to say, I'm putting my life in. To put it in Christian terms, I'm trusting God and putting my life in His hand as I go out and do my job today. Is what those patches mean. It's the same as saying, Jesus bless me today.
Anya and Kevin, I want to give you the final word. We only have like 50.
See, from what I know is the gods were one thing with Norse and Germanic stuff, but they didn't really put a lot of stock in that. They were actually more worried about because there were tiers to their gods. There were the lower tier gods, the higher tier gods, and they cared more about sometimes what the lower tier gods did, like than anything else.
15 seconds on Odinism, the overall. Put a button on this for us.
It'll be very interesting to see what the next set of public defenders does with this, if they continue the Odinist angle or if they drop it.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, thank you so much. Murder Sheet podcast.
All right, so I did want to get into this thing here because she's back in the news again. This is hold on a second. Lori Vallow. So let me go here. And I'll share this. So she's facing more charges now. I don't know if you guys have heard about Lori Vallow Daybell, but she's a winner. Talking about crazy people. So it's just part of the Doomsday Cult thing. But she's now facing charges in Arizona. So let's check this out.
Doomsday Cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell is being held in isolation in Arizona. That is after her extradition from Idaho. We just received this video of her perp walk, which happened early Wednesday morning. There she is, this long trip from Idaho. They got in.
This woman here is just absolutely crazy. She's, yeah.
Around just after midnight. And there she is being escorted in by the Maricopa County Sheriff's deputies. And that is where she was searched and given a new uniform. During yesterday's press conference, the sheriffs shared a few details about her transfer.
Yeah, don't they? Like I always miss lives too, especially during the day for sure. But this woman here is just absolutely bonkers.
What was her demeanor like during this process?
I understand that she was very sociable the entire trip. Talked quite a bit.
She's being held in isolation.
About what?
Oh, that's between the deputies, the courts, and the prosecutor.
Because they will, like, women's prison, they will get to her, literally.
Apparently, I don't know that she gave any specific statements related to the investigation, but I just know that they said she was very chatty.
Yeah, very chatty. There she is. Vallow Daybell set to be arraigned Thursday. This is in relation to her fourth husband, Charles Vallow's death. She's also accused of conspiring to kill her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux. She's already serving multiple life sentences for the deaths of her two children, Tylee, JJ, and of course, Chad.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if anybody wants to be a mod, let me know. You don't have to do anything if you're a mod, but, you know, if you want to be a mod, let me know. That way you can post things and link them in the chat. And I'll do it. It's fine.
Ed's wife, Tammy.
I'm pretty easy, you know, as long as you're not, you know, posting, linking, you know, crazy stuff.
So, what do we think here? This next case is a different one. Marie Pereira and Joe Ested with us. Joe, what do you think? Would you want to be on that field trip with Cult Mom, driving cross country and having her chat you up?
Not at all. And that was a
not at all.
long ride. And you gotta think she's a female, and you know, you have to make sure she eats, she goes to the bathroom, she has water, and if she's chatting, then you gotta worry about what she's saying. So that's not a trip that I would want to take, not for that long with her. No, not at all.
The case that is pending now in Arizona, the one that is now going to begin likely sometime next year, it's a different case, Marie, and the prosecutors in Arizona took their time to go to the grand jury in this.
So she was denied bail in Arizona too. So she's already serving a life sentence, and the other guys, did that trial begin already? I'm not sure.
Because it's a different case. Alex Cox did it. He admitted to do it. He says it was self-defense. There's him explaining his version of the story to police. Why is she being accused of murder?
I guess after the fact, when they realized the degree of depravity between her and Chad and what they did to those children, they circled back and they are going to avenge the death of Chad's wife, and then now the fourth husband. This case is going to
This woman here is never getting out of prison. Never.
be very difficult because the murderer, the alleged murderer, is not around. And they have to prove that what happened that day was planned. They lured him to the house. They pretended that he attacked them when they did not. There were no witnesses because the teenage preteen daughter, right?
And
So-
Tylee told her version of the story that they got in the fight with over the baseball bat. She's dead. She can't now clarify this.
Exactly.
However, if everything comes in, the whole Chad, Tylee, JJ dead in the backyard story, and Tammy being shot, now a juror's gonna be like, all right, well, now I can see it. But you have to get that in.
You have to get that in. Is that relevant? Is that probative, or is that extremely prejudicial? And is that really putting a guilt stamp on them before the jurors even have a chance to look at it in an impartial way? I don't think everything is going in. And again, they don't have any way of proving intent, premeditation, luring. It's not a slam dunk for the state because the brother's dead. And the only witness to it, the little girl who they might have made flip over if she was around, is gone.
Right.
So how are they proving that?
Right.
Based on past cases and past behavior? The Constitution may prevent that. Evidentiary rules may prevent that. 404B evidence may prevent that. We'll see what a judge says.
Oh, that'll be right at the beginning. And also mental acuity, you know, she was deemed incompetent in Idaho for a very long period of time. But Joe, she seemed to be very, in that first court appearance, with it. And apparently if she's chatting away with the officers, that conversation could become important. So while they may have been annoyed by it, they're also listening and have to report back.
Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't want to be a part of that, because you know, at the end of the day,
I wouldn't want to be a part of that either.
Going to get called in. You're going to have to come and speak to the prosecutor. You're going to have to speak to the judge, and now all of a sudden, now you're a part of this case.
Right. If she said anything either way might help the defense, you'll be in a courtroom. And
I mean, when you think about it, there's just so many cases going on right now. It's just absolutely amazing. So I'll play this one here. What's his face? Alex Murdaugh got. Well, let's play that. Anyways. All right, so here we go with Alex Murdaugh here. He got sentenced, I think, to, was it 20 years for his financial stuff? Hold on a second. All right, here we go.
If anything, to his
27
victims.
years.
So happy to welcome in a very special guest, the attorney who represents the family of Gloria Satterfield, Eric Bland. Eric, first of all, I just want to say what a marvelous advocate you have been. It was a real treat to watch you yesterday, and you said so many things that were on the minds of so many of us who've been following this case about these victims finally getting justice. So bravo to you for everything you've done for your clients. And I'm curious, did you find his apology as insincere as I found it, and many of our wonderful viewers found
That's like a slam dunk question right there.
it to be?
It was hollow. This is the words of a narcissist. I don't know if you saw it, but I got up and left in the middle of it, and I made a statement that I probably shouldn't have. I said it was horse crap, but I used another word. This was, you know, a dress rehearsal for him and a PR infomercial for the motion for a new trial coming up. And ultimately, if he's granted a new trial, how he will testify in front of the new jury and in front of the public. He's trying to change his image. It didn't work in the first jury trial of the murder case, and he's trying to show that he's a different kind of guy. But it came as insincere, and I think if you heard the words of Judge Newman, who said, "I don't know who you are, and I don't think you know who you are. You're an enigma and enigmatic, and I'm just at a loss because it's just a shame of the person that's standing in front of me." And he put in words what everybody in the courtroom was feeling, because it went way beyond just talking about the victims of the theft that he pled guilty to. He gave an open letter to Buster and talked about, you know, everything was about him and what he's doing. And then he did, you know, a therapy session on drugs and talked about how you rehab. And it was really too much. I think his lawyers did let him go on way too long. And I think the judge let him go on so he could hang himself.
It was absolutely offensive to me, and I know to so many of our wonderful viewers who have wanted to see justice for your clients, all of the other tremendous people that he wronged so badly. And I'm glad you mentioned the Apology to Buster too, Eric, because that was one of those jaw-dropping moments. Like, wow, he's really using this to his advantage. I have a little clip from it. It's short. I want to play it for our audience now.
Yeah, this guy here just won't go away. I keep saying, oh, like he's just going to be on the news all the time, every day. This guy just needs to go away. They need to let these people after him. I mean, it's took so much money from people on the live zone here. This guy here is just a royal piece of dog crap.
I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every single thing.
Nobody believes you. Nobody. Not even this guy right here in this picture. Nobody believes you.
Mom and I ever talked to you.
You know, sure, Buster deserves an apology, but was this the time and place for it, right? Eric, what was Tony saying to you, about all this? I mean, what a great kid. America loves him. People around the world love him. We have so many viewers, as you know, in the United Kingdom.
But I still think to this day that, hey, Jocelyn, how are you? Yes, we are live. I still think that if he doesn't take the stand, he probably walks away from this case. I mean, the unaliving case anyways, but they would have got him on so much more anyways.
And in other countries abroad that have just had their hearts broken knowing what he's had to endure.
Good to see you, Jocelyn. Thank you for coming in.
What did he think about the apology and all of it?
Well, through the process of you being a solicitor and a prosecutor and then an attorney, practicing attorney, you see the development of your clients and you see them grow in front of you. When I met Tony couldn't even talk in front of the camera. He had an inability to articulate how he was feeling, and he would always say, okay, you say it. I mean, he spoke from the heart. I had no idea what he was going to say. I had no idea how.
Just think about how many lives this guy ruined, right? Like, it's so pathetic.
He was going to confront Alex. In fact, the judge basically said, you're supposed to look at me, meaning the judge, when you talk, and don't address the attorneys or Alex Murdaugh. That was a objection that Dick had made because he heard that I was going to take off on Alex and the attorneys a little bit. But when Tony said to the judge, can I look him in the eye? Because when I want to speak to somebody, I want to look at them. And he just absolutely lit him up.
The problem is, no matter how you treat this guy, he just doesn't care. Just doesn't.
Julie. And then when he said, I'd like to do my own letter.
I mean, look at this guy. He doesn't care. This guy only cares about one person, and that's himself. That's it. Nobody else.
Apology that's more sincere than your insincere letter that you sent me. And then the way Ginger, who went to school with him, just like Jordan Jenks, my other client who was so articulate, asked, why would you do this? And Jordan called him an animal. I mean, it was as good a victim impact statements as I've ever heard. And, you would have loved it if you were in Creighton's position when you were a prosecutor to get that kind of victim impact statement. The only downside was it was a negotiated plea. And the choice was if Judge Newman varied from the 27 years and gave him more, they would have been able to back out of the plea. So I think if it wasn't a negotiated plea, the statements from the victims, not me, would have gotten him close to 30, 40.
This is a nice place. Look at this place. Look at that chair. That's a leather chair.
Years.
Wow. Well, I believe it, Eric. I believe it. And you were right. This is a very stiff sentence. This is good because it could be effectively a life sentence if anything were to go wrong with the homicide case. We know that.
But like I'm saying, these guys here are born every single day. In my opinion, people literally trusted this guy with their life savings. And obviously now, you don't probably want to trust this guy, but yeah, he's a rat's ass, literally.
that he thinks he's getting a read from.
Don't forget, Jules.
Yeah, tell me.
Don't forget, you got the federal court sentence that's coming in February from Judge Gergel. He pled guilty on 22 counts, and Judge Gergel's going to light him up. So if he lives to 77 years old, he walks out of state prison and he marches right over to federal prison. Plus, there's still the Labor Day shooting felony charges out there that he's going to have to deal with. So Alex will never get that fresh breath of air ever again. And I think all of us, or a large majority of us, will be very happy about that.
I don't know where this guy finds the money for all these lawyers. I just don't. But
Absolutely, Eric. He's
all right, so I want to go to this here because this is a pretty interesting thing that happened this week here too. This is going back to the Rex Heuermann thing. How many people in here think that the wife's involved? So this is this came out. I'm a little late with this one. This one came out a couple of days ago, but report that hair on the bodies matches Gilgo Beach suspect's wife's DNA. So I don't know what this is all about, but I'll play it anyways. So let's do this here. Oops.
Beach serial killer steals the spotlight once again from her locked-up husband. New reports reveal a DNA sample taken from Asa Ellerup matches her to genetic material found on the remains of Rex Heuermann's alleged victims. Now, the match could add to the incriminating evidence against Heuermann. He's charged so far in the deaths of 3 women, their bodies found more than a decade ago. This all comes as Ellerup makes news with another questionable relationship, this one with the Peacock Network, which signed her to a 7-figure documentary deal to tell her story as the Heuermann trial unfolds. To News Nation's Laura Engel from Long Island tonight with more on this new report. Laura?
Hi, Connell. You know, if verified, this could bring an even stronger.
So so her alibi's good. Okay, there you go.
Link to Rex Heuermann and his wife to the victims in this case. It is important to note that these reports have not been verified by law enforcement, but still, this could be a major development similar to the one we saw when investigators were able to link DNA off of a pizza box linked to Rex Heuermann that they say tied him to this case. Newsday and ABC News reporting that a cheek swab sample taken from Asa Ellerup, the wife of Gilgo Beach suspect Rex Heuermann, matches DNA material found on the remains of some of Heuermann's alleged victims. The sample was taken from Ellerup in July when her husband was arrested for the murder of 3 victims, their bodies found dumped on Gilgo Beach in 2010. Despite the reports, Ellerup's attorney said this to News Nation: "There is nothing new in the reports today. This is consistent with what the prosecution stated at Rex Heuermann's arraignment. We have not seen or received any further DNA reports. The prosecution has been consistent since day one that Asa Ellerup is not a suspect and was not in the jurisdiction when these homicides were committed." There have been previous reports that genetic material linked to hair found in burlap wrapped around some of the victims matched Ellerup's DNA, and now there appears to be a possible stronger link. Also important to note, prosecutors have not charged Asa Ellerup with any crimes and say she was out of town at the time of the murders. Forensic experts say if Ellerup's DNA indeed matches genetic material found on some of the victims, it would raise more questions than answers.
What's fascinating to me is that it was still there after this period of time where it has been exposed out in the.
See, I when this whole thing broke a few months ago, you know, I was kind of on that side thing. I mean, I don't think she really had anything to physically do with what was going on, but I'm starting to question now whether or not she actually knew. You know, like, it's hard for me to believe that she didn't know anything, but if she was an accomplice or something like that, I'd probably just discard that. But you never know in these things. Like, I don't think this was like I think this was kind of like a mutual relationship as opposed to like a loving husband and wife thing.
Element, and they were still able to recover it. This is very fragile evidence. Wind can come up and blow hairs away. From my perspective, I'd like to know if there was more than one hair, if you had multiple hairs, or if you had multiple other sources of DNA that might be found there.
Rex Heuermann was arrested and charged with the murder for 3 of the 4 victims of the Gilgo Four. Their remains were discovered along a remote stretch of Ocean Parkway on Long Island in 2010. A grand
Yeah, I agree with what Jocelyn said. I don't think she I don't think she says. I'm pretty sure that this is transfer DNA here. I mean, if that house is anything like it is inside, it's pretty easy to transfer hairs all over the place.
jury is still investigating him as a prime suspect in the 4th case and is said to be close to a conclusion that could come before Christmas. And we reached out to the Suffolk County District Attorney.
I know one thing. I don't believe that this guy's just responsible for these. I think he's, and that's why I'm hoping they get a specific injunction to get this DNA out, because I just think he's guilty of these and probably others.
Attorney for comment on this case. They gave us none, saying they could not comment on it. And Rex Heuermann will be back in court on February 6th. Connell?
All right. So let's see here. What else am I going to do? I did want to do one thing. There's, like I said, there's so many cases going on here. It's just we have this
50% off premium plans for Cyber Week. What I love.
Let's play this one here because this is an interesting case here. So let's play this one here, and then I'll get out of here. It's I just want to thank everybody for coming in because it's late. And I enjoy all the people that come in. Thank you. So this is Jared Bridegren murder update. Prime suspects in court. So let me read a little bit about this here. Sorry, my computer's all fucked up right now. So for the first time since Jared Bridegren was gunned down by an alleged hitman, Shanna Gardner and her husband Mario Saldana appeared in court as co-defendants in the murder. The couple are accused of hiring a hitman to kill Gardner's ex-husband, but will they be tried together or separate? So here we go.
Was born into wealth. Her parents had money, lots of it. She was also raised in a devout Mormon home. From the outside, it seemed like she was living a very stable, normal life. She then met a man named Jared Bridegren during a trip to Florida. Jared was also a devout Mormon. They fell in love and got married in Utah in 2010. They began their lives together in Connecticut and began raising their twins, but then moved to Jared's hometown in Jacksonville, Florida, for the health of one of their children. It was here in Florida where life changed for Shanna. Marital problems.
Do you work nights, Jocelyn? Because let me do this here. Hold on a second. Yeah, I'm on my second iced coffee here. So, yeah, I'll be up till about, 5:30, 6 o'clock. I may come on later and do another live. I'm not sure. I got a lot of shit to do here. Look into Herb Baumeister and Ox Hollow Farm. You will think his wife was. I will check into that. But this case here is interesting too.
Problems, allegations of cheating, and actions very inconsistent with her Mormon upbringing. This led to a divorce. This also led to endless battles concerning the twins. Shanna did remarry. She met Mario Fernandez Saldana at the gym where she worked out. They fell in love and got hitched. Jared also got remarried and started a family with his new wife. Then Jared was murdered. Shanna skipped the funeral and moved to Washington State without her new husband. Then the killer, Henry Tenen, was arrested. Mario was arrested. And finally, Shanna was arrested, charged with murder, facing a potential death sentence. Shanna was.
If you ever want to watch something funny, like I've been watching a lot of these court things, law enforcement things where they pull people over, and lately I've been watching the ones that the ocean police and stuff like that, and lake police. It's absolutely amazing how these people can try to wiggle themselves out of just a BUI charge. you can literally tell these people are under the influence, but they claim, I'm not drunk, I'm not drunk, I'm not drunk. Yeah, sure you're not.
Was in court today with her new husband and her attorney, Jose Baez. And tonight, we'll take a look at what happened in court. We'll take a look at the alleged motive in the
Yeah, this case is going to be interesting here.
case and the relationship between the two accused killers as we investigate the murder of Jared Bridegan. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. The man who killed Jared
How these things become so bitter is just bizarre. Like, I just don't understand people, I guess.
Bridegan had absolutely no motive. Henry Tennant's his name. No connection whatsoever to Jared Bridegan. No beef with Jared Bridegan. There was no reason for him to do it other than getting paid to do it. Acting as a hitman.
I shouldn't be laughing.
And setting him up and taking him out. But when you look for the motive, why would he do it? The only motive is money. Is being hired to do it. There was nothing personal. There was no relationship. There was nothing. His life and Jared Bridegan's life did not intersect until.
Right? I mean, that's.
The murder. That's when it happened. Now, Jared Bridegan loved his children. Absolutely loved his children. He's a father, wants to be in their lives. And this became, number one, the reason they were all living back in Florida. One of his children had a medical condition, needed to live in that area that was best for the health of the child, but wanted to spend time with his kids and started a family with his second wife, but does not exclude his children from his first wife. No way. That's not Jared Bridegan. He's a dad. And because you're not with mom doesn't mean you're no longer a dad. And he stayed in his children's lives. And this became a real point of contention and turned into a 7-year custody battle with his ex, Shanna Gardner. 7.
I mean, my son is from a different wife, but I'd never, ever, it's just, I don't understand how people can be so bitter. Like, and I remember I remember when I went to court for child support, I wanted to give more, I think it was like 25% back there. And I'm like, that's kind of cheap.
It just never ends. And people ask me, when you practice law, why didn't you go into family law? That's why. It never ends. It never, ever ends. And there was a bitterness here that went beyond many of them. I mean, how many times were they in court? Time after time after time after time. Can't work things out, can't figure things out. And you don't know who to blame for that. But my guess is, during the course of this trial, prosecutors will probably be looking at Shanna Gardner, the one who wanted control of those children. And she couldn't because Jared Bridegan was a great father and wanted to be in their lives. Now, that relationship obviously broken and could never be fixed, and the bitterness continued for 7 years. But I want to talk about another relationship. Is she going to have trouble with husband number 2? Her co-defendant in this murder case. I have a suspicion that, this is going to be big trouble inside the courtroom. You see, the hitman is so
Big Trouble in Little China. Remember that movie? That was such a good movie.
somewhat connected to her husband, Mario, but not directly connected.
Okay, Jocelyn.
To her. The only viable defense she has here is to throw Mario.
I can't believe I've already been here for almost 2 hours. It just seems like I just started.
Under the bus, along with the hitman. Mario was doing that. I don't know why he did it. Maybe he did it because he thought it would impress me or it would make me happy, but I didn't want him dead. Oh, no. That's got to be the defense. And they're both going to be tried together in this case. And it's going to be a strange dynamic. Prosecutors love this, by the way. We love to be, I'm a former prosecutor, love to be on one side.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Maybe I'll do that next week. Maybe I'll start doing that next week. I don't think I've heard of that. I might have. Dan Markle. Yep. I'll Is that the one with the woman who shot him or something like that?
The courtroom, and they're on the other side. I'm pointing the finger at them, and they're pointing the finger at each other. That's like best case scenario for a prosecutor. So for those of you who don't know the whole backstory here, because it is layered, it's somewhat complicated, trying to work through it. Matt Johnson, Court TV crime and justice correspondent, has the story for us.
I'll be right back in 2 seconds.
Jared Bridegan appeared to have it all. A new job as a Microsoft executive, living in sunny Florida with his wife Kirsten and 4 children.
We had just had London. She was 6 months old. So things were good.
Kirsten had 2 children with Jared, London and Bexley. They also shared custody of his 9-year-old twins from a previous marriage.
On the week that we did not have the oldest 2 kids at our home, Jared would take them out to dinner. It was referred to as date night in this agreement.
The agreement kept Jared and Kirsten in Florida. Bridegan and his ex-wife, Shanna Gardner Fernandez, were in a bitter custody battle. What was that relationship like, he and his ex-wife?
The relationship between us and his ex-wife was not cordial. Our communications were always in writing because there was not mutual trust between the 2 households.
On February 16, 2022, Jared had one of his scheduled daddy date nights. After dinner, he dropped off his twin daughter and son at his ex-wife's home in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and headed home to St. Augustine. On the way, he stopped to get his 2.5-year-old daughter, Bexley, ice cream. She was in the back seat of it.
This is when New Englanders start to dream about Florida beaches, especially like Naples or
his SUV. He then called Kirsten, telling her he loved her and would be home soon.
Naples, Florida is one of my favorite places on this planet.
How did you learn something was wrong?
As time started ticking by and the time that they're
Bring your own coffee though, because the coffee down there sucks.
usually home passed, I can't even describe it. Like, I just knew something's not right.
Her fears became reality after an officer answered Jared's cell phone, telling her Bexley was unharmed, but they needed her to come by the police station to hear about her husband.
They later on that night told me that he had been shot. Where did this happen? Because he usually gets in the car and just drives home. I had talked to him.
Jared was not a victim of any robbery gone wrong or carjacking. Police say he was the victim of a targeted attack on a one.
Geez, I hope Charlotte's okay. She's usually in here. Good people. I think she's from England.
One-way road. He traveled often. Jared came across a tire police say was intentionally placed right here in the middle of the road in the sanctuary neighborhood of Jacksonville Beach, Florida. That's when someone came out of these woods and ambushed the father of 4, killing him on the spot. For almost a year, no answers. Then in January 2023, a break in the case.
Henry Tenon was arrested for the following crimes: conspiracy to commit murder, second-degree murder with a weapon, accessory after the fact to a capital felony, and child abuse.
Now investigators say that.
Hi, sweetie. How are you? Aren't you supposed to be sleeping?
Tenon has pleaded guilty in the case and admitted to shooting Bridegan.
Henry Tenon pled guilty to murdering Jared Bridegan. Henry Tenon has admitted that he, in fact, was the shooter.
According to court records, Tenon once lived in this house that was once owned by Bridegan's ex-wife's current husband. And now investigators have charged both the ex-wife, Shanna Gardner, and her husband, Mario Fernandez Saldana, with first-degree murder.
We will be filing a notice of our intent to seek the death penalty.
Prosecutors call Gardner the mastermind behind the murder. Both Shanna and Mario have denied any involvement. Meanwhile, Jared's widow says that she suspected them from the beginning. Had you suspected that Mario was also involved in all of this?
From very, very early on, I felt like obviously I didn't have any.
Thank you, sweetie. Let me show you this place. Did they say Jacksonville Beach? Hold on a second here. Well, let's just keep playing this. Hold on.
Any evidence, but I felt that Mario Fernandez and Shanna Gardner would be involved somehow.
And big day in the courtroom today, and afterwards.
So, give me a second here. Just want to show people where this kind of is. If he said Jacksonville Beach, that's where this is. Look at this place. Wow. This is nice. This is very nice. This is on the East Coast, but it's still nice. Oh, too many people. See, this is why I like the West Coast, because there's not as many people. Hold on a second. Ooh, that looks cool. Look at this beach. It's heavenly. All right, so that's where this is anyway. So let's go back to this here. Beautiful beach. I'll still
Shanna's attorney
take the western coast of Florida, Clearwater, Naples.
Spoke. She's being represented by a man who's had a lot of success winning cases that people thought could not be won. Talking about Jose Baez. Take a listen to what he had to say after court today.
Well, the prosecution thinks they have enough evidence to seek the death penalty against her.
Well, I've heard that before.
It's a death penalty case. Seems a little confident there, doesn't he? Let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson. Join us live from outside that courthouse in Duval County, Florida. Matt, great to see you.
Yeah, I live in the woods too, but I love beaches. Beaches like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I don't like a lot of people either these days.
Tonight, let's start with the couple, right? You've got.
I'll definitely check into that. Maybe I'll start covering that next week. Miracle Arts.
Shanna and Mario, both in court today. They haven't been together in quite some time. What happened today?
Yeah, big day in court. Nice to see you, Vinny. Happy Friday. So it was a big day because the former lovebirds turned co-conspirators, according to the state, and accused killers. They were reunited. And they didn't seem too happy about it. This is the first time that they've been in the same room since they were estranged and separated, and since his arrest and her arrest for the murder of her ex-husband, Jared Bridegan. Now, they also appeared very different in court. Take a look at your screen right there. He's in that jail suit that is appointed to him, where she's wearing street clothing. At some point, she was smiling.
Like little strings. She's flexing little strings of Dopey and Dopey 2.
With her attorney, Jose Baez. He was pretty much stone-faced, Vinny.
Yeah, there's quite a difference. I think what he's going to learn here is that when you marry a trust fund woman and you end up as a co-defendant, you will get the short end of it. She can pay for the big defense, which is what's happening, and she's going to point the finger right at him, and he is the one that's going to get the brunt of it from the prosecution and probably from Jose Baez at the same time.
Right, and the situation with this is that it's a triangle, right? Because you also have a third co-defendant, Henry Tenen, who we talked about in that piece, who has already pled guilty, and he is required, according to his plea deal, he doesn't have life on the table. What he has
is he kind of short, or is she the tall?
Right.
Yeah, he's kind of short.
And the situation with this is that it's a triangle, right? Because you also have a third co-defendant, Henry Tenen, who we talked about in that piece, who has already pled guilty, and
she's got to be like a foot taller than him.
He is required, according to his plea deal, he doesn't have life on the table. What he has is 15 years, but he has to testify against his co-conspirators, according to the state. And, they are both facing the death penalty at this point in time. And Shanna has now joined her husband in waiving her right to a speedy trial.
Okay, so speedy trial is waived, so this thing is not going to move super fast. I understand that. And something is happening here, right? With the discovery in the case, there were some issues involving things that were placed on the server that were supposed to be accessible, but were not.
Yeah, she may be actually tall. She looks fairly tall.
Not supposed to be there. Can you go through and sort of explain that situation for us?
Yeah, that's really an important key part of this case right now, and that's going to determine the projection of the case, for that matter, and what we're going to see next. So you have Mario Saldana, who says that he hired an attorney before he was even arrested. This is months ago. And then he's arrested. They take his laptop, they take his cell phone, and the content.
I will. Thank you, Miracle Hearts, too. I'll definitely start covering that. Thank you.
Are downloaded and uploaded to the state server. Well, that
there's so many freaking cases going on right now. It's
includes, according to the state, they said it today, some of the communications that was uploaded to the discovery. And that's what Jose Baez was actually talking about today, why he couldn't access all the discovery. And this is exactly why Mario Saldana's attorneys say that they want these prosecutors kicked off the case.
In fact, let me write it down before I forget.
Because they say it's a violation of his rights, that it was attorney-client privilege, and they don't know how to remedy it.
So, what did the judge have to say about any of this? Was the judge concerned about all of this, or is the judge trying to figure out a way around all this?
The judge is very concerned, and we have a clip from that very important part of this hearing today. Let's take a listen.
Can't hear anything.
Those emails that they concede are attorney-client privilege were uploaded to Next Point by the state's own.
Yeah, no, he's pretty short.
Admission. They have been able to be accessed at a minimum by anyone at Next Point, by law enforcement, and by the state attorney's office. I'm not prepared to respond today as to whether anyone saw it or didn't see it. I don't know that. But to answer your question, yes, there's one document that they intend on using, that they've read and they've reviewed, and the court and defense and the state discussed in chambers this morning. And I think that's what is really the crux of what the next step is going to be, Your Honor.
This guy better start talking.
We have received the discovery, and which consists of a thumb drive, and in addition to that, and a external hard drive as well. Of course, we haven't reviewed the contents of it. There is one thing I think that the court should be aware of. Since we had the Next Point issue come up, it was immediately shut down. So we did not have access to further discovery post the date of it being shut down.
What is that date? I believe it was November 15th, Your Honor.
So right there, you have a very critical moment and a key part of this case and how it's going to end up, Vinny. Like, do the prosecutors stay on the case? Do they not? The judge says maybe a special judge has to be appointed to listen to all the evidence because she doesn't want to hear it because she is going to be presiding over the trial, as far as we know. So this is really key to determine what happens next, and that's still up in the air.
Yeah, that's problematic because these are death penalty cases. Death penalty cases are the most litigated.
This case is going to be really weird.
Cases in our entire system of justice. Every issue is a potential problem. Everything has to be done 1,000% right. Cross the T's, dot the I's, etc. So my understanding, and one of the other issues presiding over this, you mentioned that Shanna waived her right to a speedy trial. I mean, that's another potential problem here, right? If you're saying, well, we're waiving the speedy trial because you did this with the.
I'm gonna do a little research thing on how many people actually waive their right to a speedy trial, and I guess it's got to be really high. Like, I would probably say, just off the top of my head, maybe like 80%.
Discovery, it becomes problematic.
Well, it becomes problematic.
She's a little weird. That's just maybe from, I don't know, her being in court, but she looks a little weird.
But it was also expected because Jose Baez was hired by this very wealthy family to defend Shanna Gardner, the heiress to this paper fortune out west. So he just got the case a couple weeks ago when she was extradited from Washington State here to Florida. And he hasn't had an opportunity because of those questions about discovery with Saldana's case to review all of the discovery. He just got the rest of it today. Wow. So it's really in their best interest to waive that right. And that's what she did today.
Good morning.
Morning.
I've been handed a form that's titled Unlimited Waiver of Speedy Trial. Have you gone over this form with your attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and it has your signature on it. Did you sign it indicating that you have, in fact, gone over this with your lawyer?
Yes, Your Honor.
The form indicates that you've reviewed both the advantages and disadvantages of waiving speedy trial. Is that true?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and has anyone threatened you or coerced you to get you to waive speedy trial?
No, ma'am.
Promised you anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I will find that the waiver of speedy trial is freely and voluntarily entered.
I mean, I should say that everybody's innocent until proven guilty, I guess, right? So.
And Vinny, that's really also an important moment because that's one of the first times we've heard from Shanna since she's been arrested. And after that, she was smiling with her attorney, as we know, Jose Baez. But he also had another big win in court because the court granted him and the team there access to what was discovered with the grand jury, those proceedings and the testimony from that.
And what's interesting, you say that he just got the rest of the discovery today. And yet after court, he was talking about how there's no evidence in this case, but he hasn't reviewed all the evidence yet. But I guess what he's seen so far, he doesn't consider important or conclusive in the case against his client. So big day today. So what's next here?
We have a couple big days ahead as well. So coming up later this month, Mario Saldana will be at this courthouse here behind me, and they're going to be again talking about the whole issue with the discovery and that privilege that could have been violated. So that's going to be on the 11th. And then come next year, that's the next time we see Shanna Gardner in court, his wife. That's going to be on February 2nd, and that's going to be more scheduling. So by then, we should get an idea if there's going to be a trial date set, but Wheels Does Justice probably turning pretty slow here on this one.
I think so. I really do, because I think that everything will be fully.
Definitely. Crazy eyes. Definitely.
Litigated, number one, and I think number two, this issue of attorney-client privilege and the prosecutors is real messy in a case where you're seeking the ultimate penalty. Matt Johnson down in Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County tonight. Great to see you, Matt. Thanks so much.
Have a good weekend. Thank you.
All right. So that's the end of that. I think it's what I've been 2 hours or so on here. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming coming in. Miracle Hearts, Audrey. Geez, why can't I get that name right? Jocelyn was here. Jocelyn's here. Who else was here? Miranda Lee was here. CJK was here. Heather, my wife, was here. Andy was here. Miranda, everybody that was here, thank you very much for coming in. I'm scrolling up to see. But anyways, I hope everybody has a great weekend. I don't know if I'm going to come on later this morning or not. I might. But I usually do 2 lives. I do this one here, and then I try to do one early around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to try to deep dive some of these. But I do want to thank everybody for coming in. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Big football day today. Go Tide. Yeah, right. So anyways, love you all platonically. Thank you for coming in, and I'll play my outro and get the hell out of here. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Frosty, too. Frosty was in here. Thank you, kiddo. Good night, everybody.